Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most important areas of the game, faction wars. And to do that, we're being joined by absolutely crushing the free-to-play leaderboards at the moment. It's Bront Catherder. How are you doing, man?
Pretty good. Good to be back. Definitely been fun talking with you last time. It's nice to come back here and talk more about this stuff. I certainly love Faction Wars. I think from the curated stuff compared to Secret Rooms and Centranos, I think it's the best content that Raid's got to offer, honestly, particularly early game too. But
Yeah.
it can be a struggle for a lot of people.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's one of the strongest thing Raid has going for it is you've got fantastic identity to each of the factions. They're very unique, and it's really fun then to get to build up teams within those. It makes a bunch of champions useful that might not otherwise be useful. I'm sure we're going to touch on some of that in this video, and requires some unique strategies as well. And it's got really strong rewards like yeah, I mean, as you guys can see, my my account is swarmed with red dots right now because I've not basically played in a week and a half. I'm letting the team down, but it's what it is. But yeah, I mean, if I was still playing regularly, I already said this in a previous video. I think my big focus for month 2 would have been faction wars and improving that, because that perception gear. I mean, hell, let's craft some up now so the clan is getting some CBC points. That faction war gear can be so impactful and be so much better than anything else that you're going to get early game. Can we get something with speed? Let's see. No, but hey, we got a bomb champ. That'd be all right.
It's got accuracy and it gets speed with it naturally, so it can
Yeah.
go on a Faction Wars champion.
Mm.
That's actually a really good Faction War champion piece because sometimes you don't have the crit rate stuff to spare.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to build with 40% crit rate anyway, then sometimes attack is actually a better stat to throw on a glove.
There you go. Okay. So, Bron, I mean, first of all, do you feel the same way about faction wars? Like, is it, that important that early on in a free-to-play account? Like, agree or disagree?
Yeah, I think people underestimate how important it is early on. Not only are you getting decent progression rewards from that bottom track there. I mean, yes, it's only one ancient there and one book here or there, but I can tell you, you can be a source of epic books. Eventually, it becomes sacreds and bigger chickens and chunks of silver and energy. It does definitely grow as your account grows as well and can become better. Plus, the different boss stages give you the extra books as well. So
Mm.
sometimes you can actually push a boss stage for a book, which can be very valuable. Yeah, stage 14 is always one of the trickier ones to get past, and then obviously stage 21 is usually the roughest one. But I think that, as you mentioned, that getting that perception gear is so impactful on an early game account. Even 4-star perception gear to some level can throw on some, temporary faction wars champs, especially when you're talking about the early levels. So being able to get those plus glyphs. I
Mm.
mean, do you have enough glyphs on your main account? Probably not.
Oh, you
So
can you can
why
never
would you
have
give
too
them
many.
up on an early game account?
Yeah, you can never have too many 6-star speed glyphs. That is the rule number 1 of Raid Shadow Legends right there. Always need more. I mean, you can see just even on this account, which I played for basically a month, if I flick through, there's a couple of sets I've got a big chunk of, but the biggest one, it's perception by quite a decent margin, and stuff that's actually rolled up and used as well. And yeah, I've got a little selection of glyphs. As you can see on this account, I've got a single solitary speed glyph that's not been used.
Ooh.
The rest have all very much been used. Yeah, glyphs, you can only really get them for faction wars. Sometimes they sell a few here or there in like forge passes. Sometimes they're in events. But the bulk of your top glyphs comes from faction wars. Like I would say for an end game account, even it's arguably the most important content in the game to be clearing, even on endgame, because of those glyphs that you can't get elsewhere. Like for your daily task, your daily routine is probably come in, do your auto battle for Demon Lord, grab that actually, and yeah, then get your faction wars done. Would be sort of my thoughts on it. Yeah, but you are you still? I'm assuming you still need glyphs as well. Let's crack a sacred shard for fun.
Yeah, I mean, I have, and obviously I've been pushing it certainly harder than you have of late. I do have like 25 or 30 1-star speed glyphs, which is great because those are actually really good for speed tuning a team.
Mm-hmm.
But ooh, nice.
Seeker is
That
actually really
that's
good.
That is pretty awesome. But it's I've there's still I could use that's the only one speedless I have because pretty much I get a 3 or 4 star one and that's going on somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
Particularly because right now I'm stuck on like Dark Fey 120 in
Yeah.
normal, which is
Mm.
great because there's not a lot of people who've even gotten that far. But Dark Fey is really rough, and I've got a Morgaine, so I've got a
Ooh.
champion that's almost built for that, and I'm still struggling with it. So,
Yeah, fair, fair.
but yeah, the faction war stuff is very important. There's all kinds of tricks you can certainly use to get yourself a little bit further. Obviously, some of it is just going to carry itself. Like you're doing very well in Ogren because you've got Ugo,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's a
And
pretty easy one here.
Delaware, yeah. So,
You
mm,
know, but that Bellower is great. Prundar is obviously not like a top tier, but he's going to help keep people alive for a little bit, which is certainly not too bad.
mm.
The trick for you in this faction is actually fairly easy. Is there's places you can get farmable rares. There's also just commons and uncommons.
Mm-hmm.
Take that team back to level 1 through whatever, get yourself a couple of even 1 star, 2 star, 3 star champions, and just run them through the first levels first. It's extra stars. You only have to do it once. You may
Mm.
not want to do it during CVC, obviously, because
Mm-hmm.
CVC that's a bigger issue.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get what that's going to be 12 stars right there, clear stage 1 through 6. Those are gimmies with the team you've got right now. Stage 8 and beyond, certainly a little more hit or miss. But once you've cleared them, then you can just kind of farm the higher stages up. But it's easy extra clears, but that's easy extra stuff. 12 extra might get you to the next tier of rewards because they're spaced out about 15 to 20 points. They're spaced out about 15 points. So that
Mm.
gets you an ancient shard just by clearing a little bit of something you can clearly do. You just
Yeah,
need a
yeah, yeah.
couple of extra champions to exist.
Mm.
And if you're
Yeah.
struggling, you're just struggling with champions, you're struggling with the ones you get from mystery shards, for example, your 1 stars and your 2 stars. Well, you
Yeah.
need to make them for chickens eventually anyway.
Mm.
So a 3 star common or uncommon is still tankier than a 1 star common. And if you're going to have
Definitely.
them to like level 25 or 30 as you're bringing them up to make them a 4 star, well, they're going to be fairly, you know, without gear, they're at least not going to die instantly to one hit on those lower level stages.
Yes, yes. Can I ask you, is something, do you do the strategy, like, will you put bad gear on? I don't know. Like, let's say, Questor, or Questor, I don't even know how you say his name.
Mhm.
Use that. No one
Yeah.
is ever going to use this guy, but I'm leveling him up as food. Let's say he's 4 star chicken, level 40, ready to become a 5 star chicken. Are you like, ooh, to push some of that faction wars, you know what? I'll throw on some of this gear that like I'm planning to sell, like whatever, this rare crit damage. It's not good, but just to give him something, would you even roll it up like to level 4 or level 8? Or are you like, nah, it's a waste of silver, just sell for silver? Like, what do you think about that?
Level 4 and level 8 is not that expensive. In fact, the turning point to get back your silver is level 8, is kind of where you break even on something.
Hmm.
So you're effectively saying, I'm not going to make money on this piece, I'm going to break even. But if you think the stars are just a little bit better, and it really depends on where your threshold is too.
Hmm.
I absolutely would do it for a boss stage. Boss stages are
Yes.
super important,
And difficult as
especially
well.
considering oftentimes stage 8 is easier than stage 7 on a lot of these faction wars. So if you can
Yeah.
get past stage 7, you can start farming stage 8. Plus, of course, you get the book for getting past the stage 7 as well. And
Hmm.
that's why I talked about don't worry about 3 starring stage 7. But if you can get 1 through 6 and maybe a couple of the other ones, stage 7's a little harder just because the bosses sometimes can be a real pain to keep everybody alive.
Yeah,
Although with Ugo,
exactly.
it's actually easier. This is actually one of the easier ones I found because Ugo has that emergency revive.
Yeah, right.
So you got to manual everything, but you can pretty much set up that emergency revive to basically revive everybody before you wipe the other team up
Yep.
finally.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy enough to get discouraged. Like, oh my god, stage 7 is impossible. Especially some of the factions, it can be really tough, depending on what champs you have as well. But when you invest a bit to get past it, start farming stage 8, you can get the epic materials, and that's a big upgrade. And then stage 13, there's no boss in between you and that. But yeah, with the epic materials, like before, 3 to 4 star gear is basically useless, I think. 4 to 5, the 4 star, you'd rather not use. The 5 star is good, very good. And then 5 to 6 star is great. So yeah, getting past that first boss, and if you can beat the boss, stage 7, you can beat stage 8, you can farm stage 8. You can then farm stage 8, you're getting epic materials. Great. and then it's just wave-based content for legendaries. Stage 14 is very tough, initial progression. And you obviously want to get past that too, but you're even getting those legendary materials and getting 5 to 6 star gear, even just farming stage 13. So you're farming stage 13 for couple of weeks even. You're starting to build up a nice collection of 5 to 6 star gear. That's really upgrading your stats, makes your champs a lot stronger. And then those stats can help you then push past and beat that boss. And the epic book is, I think, fairly substantial early in the game, where it's like the rare book is whatever, I think. The legendary book
Yeah.
is phenomenal, but that's, again, very, very difficult to do that, that
Mhm.
final stage. But yeah, for sure. Cool.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is for spontaneity, you only need to beat once, for especially for the early stages.
Right, yeah.
Spend the extra 15, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever it takes
Mm,
to just farm it manually to it's you don't have to do the stage once. It's the same thing when you're advancing some of the dungeon stages.
mm,
I can manual this stage once so I can farm the next stage because the next stage is a better affinity for my champions. That happens quite often very early on.
yes.
And, it just takes a little bit of effort. Yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, like your Banner Lords is another example. You've actually got a bunch of other chickens floating around in there, but you've got, Sigmund, you've got a Lady Annabelle there,
Mm.
and I can't, and you got actually got I can't remember, Roskarmith is his name, I think.
Uh,
The
that's everyone I've
rare.
got. I've got some rares. That's,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but the rare you've actually got in there, that's the 8. He's actually a good example. Go into his kit if you can.
Yeah, sure.
So I believe he's got an AoE.
Does with the
Yes, he
shields.
does have an AoE. He's
Which,
actually got a shield too, so that's not horrible.
mm.
You already have a shield with Sigmund, but oh darn, extra. Um, I find that early on, any champion with an AoE is okay to throw some random gear on because for the very, very low end stages, that AoE can sometimes one shot especially for stage 1, you can one shot it with almost no
Nothing.
gear
Yeah.
with a level 24 level 33-star champion. You
Mm.
get them to 4 stars. And again, you're talking temporary champions for that point. Very easy to clear some of those higher stages early on. And okay, I don't have 3 stars on stage 5, but I'm farming stage 5 with a single champion that has gear. That's significant improvement.
That's very true. Yeah, very true. I mean, one thing that strikes me actually looking at these particular two crypts is, again, because this is something Colrad was saying as well, and I was like, yeah, that's actually bang on. The stage 8 for epics and stage 13 then for legendaries. Like, you can see my teams, I've got one good champion at 60 with like good gear for a 1 month account, and a proper build for a 1 month account, and then I've got, this guy is still work in progress on a random epic, and it's the same sort of deal in Banner Lords as well, where it's one good champ and then the random epic and a random rare. And it's like I can do stage 13 on both of those. Like I'm getting, that's not a big investment. Um and I think even just by building up your core team in the first month, you should be able to make fairly good progress in those faction crypts. And then you can look to yeah, build up a second good champion in the crypt, and that could maybe help you take down stage 14 and get that epic book. And great, that helps you to build up more champs, and you can farm better stuff, get the higher tier glyphs, uh, and yeah, then sort of progress all of those crypts. My feeling would be it's probably, rather than trying to finish a crypt, I feel like that can be a bit of a trap to people, where you'll go, oh man, what if I just Bannerlord's my best crypt? What if I build up like all these terrible champions, and you start really focusing on bad champions, and then you end up pulling better stuff later on, and suddenly that bad champion that you leveled up and booked, let's say they're random epics that aren't very good, and they end up just sitting in the vault and not being useful, and it actually slowed down your progress in some ways. I personally think it's probably a bit better to get to like stage 13, maybe beat the boss, and then to kind of chill for a bit and look at pushing up multiple crypts at the same time, rather than just focusing on your best couple and leaving, like, I'm sure I've got like skinwalkers for me, like 0 stars. If I get a reasonable epic for that, probably fairly good to actually focus on getting some of the stars just so I can farm. It's more so, I think, for farming the gear every day it comes up, because you can miss out on a good bit. Uh, I don't know. What do you feel about that? Are you aiming like to push? Like, I don't know what your strategy is for the challenge as well. Are you aiming to push? Do you think you will be able to like clear a full faction crypt within the 3 month challenge even?
I think I might be able to clear Dark Elves,
Ooh.
but that has a lot to do with the fact that I have pulled some of the key elements to be able to clear a crypt. I've
Ah.
got a Reviver because I've got Fang Cleric. Not a
Okay.
great Reviver, but
No.
he's usable. He's actually not horrible.
Hmm.
Got okay cooldowns at least once that gets booked. He's got a heal with a Veil. He's got a Speed Aura, which is actually nice.
Mm.
But then I've got Kale, who's obviously built because he's Kale.
Yeah.
I've got Durandil,
Oh,
who
nice.
will
Yeah.
also bring some decent damage. I just got him
Mm.
to 5-star. He might be my next 6-star because that gives me a third nuker for like
Where
tag
you?
arena as
Yeah.
well as some utility in a force nuker as well, which is sometimes kind of nice to have.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure because I've got like a Rector Drath and stuff like that too. So I've got a couple of good choices at least to make. But
Mm.
and then I've got double Cold Heart. So
Oh
don't hurt me.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Nice. Two of them.
yeah.
One's not enough.
And yeah, well, of course, one's not enough. But I've got one at 6-star because that was an obvious 6-star early on. I
Yeah.
pulled the second one and I kind of tucked her away in the vault for a little bit, and finally said, you know what? With the top end of Dark Fey, a second Cold Heart, even at 5-star, can be very effective because that max HP hit,
Mm.
is useful. And identifying champions that are effective at only 5-stars can be a very good way to push up quickly. And sometimes we're talking about, for example, for the very, very early one, what's a good champion? Well, does they have an AoE? Yes. Well, then throw a little bit of gear on them and they're going to help me a little bit. Obviously, later on, you're going to be looking for better kits.
Mm.
But some revivers don't need to be 6-star because they're that good.
Yeah.
On the other hand, sometimes the reviver is questionable enough that you need to be 6-star and booked so that they don't die because you don't have the other support champions around them, for example. So it kind of is a hit
Yeah.
or miss on that. And to be fair, this team is missing a lot of support other than the reviver.
Mm.
So I am probably going to struggle against the boss at the very minimum because that boss is the one that throws a bunch of poisons and burns and stuff. So if I can't heal these people in some way, shape, or form, it's going to be a problem.
Mm.
But I can push pretty far up to that, and it's all champions I want to invest in anyway. So certainly that's a good luxury.
That's
Whereas
huge. Yeah.
Sacred Order is another one I'm doing well in because Alice is just a huge carry as a damage dealer.
Yeah.
But I've got like Carolinia, the Candlehead
Oh
person
yeah.
in this
Yeah.
faction.
Yeah. She's sort of
Not a
mid-ish.
great champion under Carolinia. There she is, Spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Not a great champion under any circumstances. The HP burn doesn't suck, but but the little version of strengthen and an AoE decrease attack,
hmm
and it's just
Yeah. She's very
she
nice.
exists. So I've got some gear on her because she's certainly better than a lot of rares, and it's a usable kit. It's just not one I want to invest in heavily.
Yeah.
But what I might find myself doing is if that, especially for the rares, and I find it easier to do with the rares. If you
Mm.
find a rare that's got a usable kit, but is not going to be end game for you,
Mm.
bring them to 4-stars, even bring them to
Like
five
this guy is
stars
a good
if that's
example of
what's going to
that.
do something for you. Yeah, Draconis is actually a really good example. I've got a Draconis actually in my account, and I've built him because he's got some solid utility in his kit to keep everyone alive for
Yeah.
some general progression. And if I build him to 5-stars, I use him for a while, and 3 months down the road, I pull a better champion, and he becomes a 5-star chicken. Well,
Big
how many
easy.
extra glyphs and other stuff have I used and gotten because I had him at that level until then?
Yep.
Plus, in Draconis' case, he's actually pretty usable in some secret rooms, I believe, as well. So he's
Mm.
probably not the best example of a throwaway one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
some of the starters are actually probably a good example. If I got an Aethel, I
mm.
might think about building an Aethel to 4 or 5 stars. She's a good damage dealer. She's fairly easy to build for an early game account. I don't need to invest heavily in her long term, but short term, she'll bring decent value for fairly easy cost. I mean, in fact, I actually did that with Galek because to be fair, I got a 4-star Galek soul,
Ooh.
and then I pulled
Nice.
a Galek. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to take Galek, and he's going to be my damage dealer in Orcs. And I got a 5-star soul for him now. I actually managed to upgrade his soul, and
Oh
so
wow.
he's built 5-stars. His
Damn.
gear isn't amazing. I'm not going to take him past 5-stars because he obviously is going to fall off at some point in time. But I'm farming Orcs 16, I think, or something stupid like that, because
Nice.
with Tagore and a 5-star Gallic and a couple of other orcs, I've got Trumbor as well, and then I've got Old
Oh yeah.
Hermit Jorg.
Oh wow. Nice. Yeah, you got a good
Uh,
set there. Wow. That
yeah,
seems like in
it,
fact that might even be easier for you to beat than the Dark Elf one, to be honest. Um.
yeah, but it's probably going to involve me booking Jorg and
Yeah.
possibly booking Trumbore, and definitely need to get them both to 5 stars and
Oh,
six
yeah.
stars. And
Mm.
so it's a heavy investment to use those champs specifically. But if I were
Yeah.
to grab a Vrask, for example, I'd probably actually push that one because Vrask solves the healing issue,
Mm. I'd
right
say
below
probably
Tagore.
just a good Yorg and Tagore and a 5-star Trumbore, and you'd probably be fine, honestly. Because
Yeah,
Tagore does a lot of healing, actually. But well, I don't know. I'm curious to see how it will go. Um, I mean, if you pulled a good fourth, like if you pulled a Zargala or something, woo, you'd
yeah.
be sailing. Or a duck.
Zargala or
Yeah.
Duck would be amazing. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Interesting. All right. Um, I want to ask any particular bills that we'd recommend to players for Faction Wars. Be like, okay, I've got an idea for how to pick champs. I know where I'm trying to push in Faction Wars. I know it's important. I want that gear. Okay, how do I build the champs though? Like, are there any sneaky builds that people should be aware of that can have a huge impact, and then any just normal standard builds as well?
Well, the quote unquote sneaky build is anybody with an AoE, particularly if an AoE A1 or multiple AoEs,
Mm.
stun set is always a good go-to for the later game stuff.
So let's say
Just
like a
because that extra
Sinesha.
control, even utterly random. Yeah, Sinesh is a great example. She's one of the classic ones. Skull Crown, but like Banshee, not Frozen Banshee, but regular Banshee in the
And
Undead's
the
got an
undead,
A1
yeah.
that is an AoE, for example. So there's some rares that do it. In fact, I think there's like an uncommon or a common that's got an AoE one if you're absolutely desperate. I can't remember which one it
There's
is.
a couple. There's the Sacred Order girl. We were looking at her on stream earlier today, believe it or not. Is it? No, it's Sister Militant, common
That's
with an
it.
AoE. She's not
Yeah.
very good, but or there's a lizard as well, isn't there?
Yeah,
Common
I think
lizard. This guy, maybe? Yeah.
Saurus. Yeah, Saurus has
AoEs.
got it. Yeah. So Saurus is not a bad champion actually to build because I know like Odd One used to love him for campaign farming and Minotaur farming actually.
Wow.
So, just
That's funny.
he works, so why not? Shield Guard's another one that you can certainly use
Yeah,
that are okay for the
classic.
uncommons even too. And
Mm,
that's another way to get a low investment. And obviously Armiger is an MVP in some cases, depending on what your account is. Although I have not found the need for an Armiger much on my
mm.
account right now. I've still kind of got one stashed away with some stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
between blessings and the growth of the rest of the account and other stuff, I've just found that the room for Armiger is certainly smaller than it used to be, I think.
Yeah, yeah, like I'd actually build them. I used them a little bit for Spider and a little bit on Fire Knight. But no, I didn't think he was that important. Like I think you could generally just never build an uncommon and you'd be fine. Especially because they
Yeah.
can't get blessings, especially. Yeah, like I didn't regret building the Armiger. He's fine, but I also feel like I would have been fine without him. Could have skipped.
But that's actually that build right there is actually a good example of
Oh,
a good faction wars build. Not necessarily with everything to plus 16,
yeah.
but getting them in perception gear. We're talking about how perception gear can be the lifeblood of your account. Well, perception gear also gives you the accuracy and the speed that you might lack otherwise to make up for not having great substats.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, if you consider each pair of perception gear an additional 40 accuracy and effectively 5 speed, it's just the easy number to throw out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll keep really bad speed gear to throw on faction war champions as well, because that's 12 extra speed, even if there's
Mm,
not actual speed on the gear to start with. That's another good one. Perception, or not perception, pinpoint.
mm.
Obviously, pinpoint's kind of harder to get than this other stuff too. But pinpoint just gives you so many extra stats.
It's so good,
Bad
yeah.
pinpoint gear can certainly go on a faction war champion without really hurting them that much.
Mm, mm.
And then, yeah, quite often if I'm not building them explicitly for damage,
Mhm.
I might throw an attack glove on them and a defense or HP chest so that they don't die immediately and they do a little more damage than normal. Obviously, it's going to be dependent on if they're an HP champion or a defense champion or a regular attack champion.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
getting a little bit of extra damage with an attack glove means you can take attack gloves that are not great
Mm.
and still use them occasionally for some of your throwaway champions early on.
Just curious. So, I'm just trying to wonder. Do you know off the top of your head at what point like flat HP is better than HP percent for like a faction war champ that's not leveled up and stuff like 3,000. So, whereas like what's a
Uh,
five star HP percent is like what 50%? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it is almost exclusively the star
Okay.
count versus the percent is pretty much it's almost always a percent is better. And obviously for
Yeah.
once you get to a 5-star,
Mm.
your percent is going to be better.
Yeah, I'm just
But
thinking,
again,
yeah,
if I so a couple
it
of
would be
6-star
better.
flat, that's where the flat stat pieces with speed and speed set
Mm,
can
mm.
actually be somewhat valuable. Obviously those ideally you're keeping those because they hit speed and then they go on champions that you need the speed on.
Yeah.
But if they don't hit speed, well, maybe they're useful for a faction wars champion that you just kind of need to be a little fast enough to be able to take a turn before they get hit by the slow champions that you're dealing with otherwise.
Yeah, I'm actually doing some quick maths. I believe, I could be wrong. It seems roughly speaking, I think a 4-star champion, the flat gear is just as good. So you can throw your crappy flat gear, and yeah, like if it happens to have like those speed stats or accuracy can be really helpful too on it. Just slap it on for the faction war guys, and like it's really not costing you much. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the percentage really starts to overtake looking at a quick glance at the 5 stars, most likely, unless they've got ridiculously bad base stats of some sort. That's
Yeah,
interesting,
I
though.
think I think I did the math just to compare it. I think I took
Hmm.
a 6-star 60 Death Knight and
Oh,
compared flat stats versus percent stats on him, and it was like, yeah, they're just so much better on a 1-star champion.
mm.
There's no reason to use flat stats for most things. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, it can certainly it's a good way to use the gear that you have rather than just absolutely throwing it away. Obviously, if you need the silver, which is the other problem, that's part of the problem with keeping some of this bad gear is
Hmm.
sometimes you're so silver starved you kind of want the silver for stuff. But every once in a while, you get a piece that's usable enough. For the most part, I'll keep just about any piece that has speed on it,
Mm.
even if it's in a set I don't care about. And, just because speed is a great way to get through faction wars. One of the tricks of faction wars is that the actual waves
Hmm.
are the base speeds of the champions
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same as
all the way
campaign,
through.
right? Yeah. So they're really
Yeah.
slow.
So it's, the bosses, on the other hand, actually have some reasonable speeds and whatever else. But
Mm.
yeah, you're dealing with you're not going to meet anybody on the waves that's faster than about 110, and that's because the people that are 115 aren't on the waves generally.
They're too new. Maybe they might.
Yeah.
I don't think there is any Sifi. No, no. So yeah,
Nope.
no.
No CFEs. I mean, there is an arbiter on one of the floors, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
about as
just you
fast
don't
as
have
it'll
you don't
be.
you so. But even then, outspeeding an arbiter at 110 is not hard
No.
for a champion with a speed set on.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's
Literally, you don't
almost
even have to
free.
have a speed substats. A champion with a speed set on will probably almost outspeed almost any champion will almost outspeed that arbiter. You
Yes.
know,
Yes. I would say as well, and a couple of quick tips in terms of gear, especially nowadays, which is something that didn't exist when I started, right? Is there's the free gear change every month or so. Um, it's hard to try. It's usually halfway through Curse City and like oh sorry, I'll move you. Be with like, the 1 week and 6 days or 7 days left, that sort of range. So when you unlock Curse City, now you've got an in-game timer. You don't have that unlocked. Good luck, I guess. I don't know. But that is huge for specific gear sets. So number one, I mean, you could just take your best damage set, be like, slap that on my faction war guys, and let's see, can we take that boss down? Stage 14,
yep,
does that go down today? It's huge. And yeah, just your best gear sets in general, and then some specific ones that are really good. Even just one set that you can move around to take down the bosses. I know some people move gear sets for like every day for faction wars. I personally think that's a little crazy. But I think for doing a boss, I think it makes sense. Like a really good regen set, healing
yep.
every turn for your reviver, keep them alive. If you got a reviver, great. Or if you just need a champ to solo the boss. Shield sets, right? Big ol' shield makes your champ so much more survival. Makes it very easy, especially if you don't have a reviver, to keep your food champions alive if you're trying to get the 3-star
Mhm.
clears. That's great. Are there any other ones? I'm sure there are. Like a stun set, I
Oh,
suppose.
well, bolster, given we've got the pass right now,
Oh,
you'll get a
true.
little bit
Yeah.
of bolster, and even 5-star, even honestly 4-star bolster might be good
Great.
enough to be useful because again, you get the regeneration and the shield on top of it.
Yes. Yes. Guardian maybe similar, and you might get some of that, but
Yeah.
Yeah, or your typical like lifesteal or bloodthirst, like that could be kind of nice as well for again your damage dealer to survive and try solo a boss with your one good 60. There's definitely stuff you consider. I'd say like the stun provoke set as well. Any of the crowd control, stun provoke, then the shields, the bolster, regen, guardian, that
Not
sort of
days,
stuff.
by the way.
Hmm?
Not days. Days is terrible.
Oh yeah, sorry, of course. Days, just sell it, guys. Don't even bother. Why I roll it up. No, don't even sell. If you've got speed, roll it up, right? Like look at it, beautiful,
Mhm.
top tier piece right there. But
Yeah. Well, you also had a piece there with crit rate and crit damage at some point in time. Honestly, early
ooh,
on,
oh
a
this one,
crit
yeah,
rate
yeah,
and
yeah,
crit damage piece. Yeah,
yeah. Not
that's
bad early. Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
So yeah, I think any more quick tips then before we go, or have we
Well,
covered?
just we're talking about gear. Don't forget the presets exist too, because I
Oh
mean I'm
yeah.
guilty of that too. Those presets can be very good for. All right, this is my great regen piece. So
Mm.
go into the global presets and save the say there's the regen piece. So if I need to go through this on somebody, I can.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And if
Yep.
you're doing okay enough in Curse City as well, try the hard floors. I've actually cleared like 12 or 14 hard floors, and there's some of them are accessible early on, and there is a 1 hour gear removal in there, so you can certainly control that a little bit as well. You can certainly save a couple of those up. Maybe you're not going to be using them right away, but they're definitely worth holding on to and using for
Yeah, like this one over
trying.
here. Yeah.
There's one right there.
Mm.
If you can get to that, and it's very close.
Mm.
Well, it's nice to, hey, I need to beat stage 21 of Faction Wars, so we're going to be regearing a bunch of champions. Let's grab this. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Very
Definitely not the
true.
easiest one to get to because you have to get either through Bommel or you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
a awakened stage there probably, but it's possible. You might be able to get there. I managed to get there somehow. I
Yeah,
don't
like
know
this one I'd be
how,
able
but
to do because I could just use Alice, so that stage is free. I mean, for me, if I had been still playing, it was just gonna get like Soulbond to 60, and this would have been fine. And I got Haikatoon, so and then
mhm.
then I think it was easy enough because I had like some actual good stuff for the floors, so you get pretty far. But I was blocked a bit by C2, and then yeah, Soulbond was like that's a good faction wars and Curse City champ, and then it's
Yeah.
ran out
And
of time.
as we were talking with him earlier, he's talking about how he hasn't been playing that much either, and then of course he's going on vacation next week too. As I
Mm.
mentioned to him too, real life happens. Not everyone is playing hardcore constantly for this stuff. So I totally get why, yes, that means I'm not going to place well in the competition. But I do also think that it's kind of interesting for you to show hey, I had to take a couple week long break. How can I compare to all these other people by still pushing the account occasionally? And what's it going to look like if I end up playing a little more casually now towards the end? I mean, that's kind of what Colred's doing, for example. Colred is
Yeah, true. Mm.
kind of slow rolling it a bit as a standard account, just kind of to see where it holds up with those of us that are pushing a little bit harder, for example.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I might end up doing it. Ooh, might yeah,
Well,
I don't know. I'm still undecided. I'm kind of figure this week is gonna it's like super busy for me. And then I figure what I'll probably do is after my holiday, come back and then hopefully things will be a bit more chill then and I'll still have I think there'll still be like a month left in the competition at that point. So I'll be like, okay, come
yeah.
back in and see. Yeah, do some catch up and see. That's sort of the plan. So I don't think I'll have
All you
time
guys in the
this week.
comments, bully him into keeping to play this stuff. Just leave those comments there. Tell him he's a bad person if he doesn't keep on going. He is letting you
True.
guys down, and let him know how disappointed you are in.
Oh, this is brutal.
Um,
Back to silver in arena. I was goal 5, man. That feels bad. Oh, I'm hard
yeah, I
stuck
mean,
now.
and uh, you know, and it's always one of those things too. Occasionally on vacation, maybe you log into the account and just poke it a few times here or there too, or something like that. You don't have to, you don't have to do things hardcore, but maybe you don't. I can certainly understand unplugging as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna play my main a little bit. I might do a couple of videos just for fun, but I'm like adding the free to play on top of that is that's too much personally. But we'll see. I think I will come back to it because I did see a lot of comments of people saying that no, we actually would like to. Yeah, as you're saying, to see that more casual approach as well can have a lot of value and be relatable to people as well. So I was like, okay, I'll think about it. So we'll see. You get let us know in the comments. And while you're down there, guys, more importantly, go check out Bron's channel. We're going to be jumping over to do a collab over there as well. So go and watch that too. Make sure you subscribe to him and check out his stuff because he's got great videos and is killing the free to play challenge as well. Are you aiming? Are you hoping to win the whole thing? Are you aiming for first? that
Yeah, I mean,
happening?
I mean, nobody goes into this saying I'm going to win it when they go ahead time because there's all kinds of RNG going in. But
Yeah, yeah.
obviously, being as high up as I am now, I'm questioning a couple of things I was pushing for too. Like, for example, I've been pushing the missions for Arbiter,
Hmm,
but for example, I might actually be better from a points perspective, giving up on those and just spending my time in Great Hall, just expanding my Great Hall for points.
that's
And
a fair
I'm, you
point.
know,
Yeah,
at the same time, I don't know if I want to do that just because I'm thinking, well, that's not the best use of what would I play as a free to play.
yeah,
You know, pushing the Arbiter is obviously not necessarily the most realistic thing either, but at least Arbiter is a goal a free to play player would normally have anyway, versus, you know,
yeah.
let's go get, level 3 in resistance early on is really not going to do anything for this account. So,
No, yeah. I thought the Arbiter thing was interesting as well because I was like, she's gonna help you do live arena, but I don't know. I feel like she's not that crazy important for anywhere else. She'll help obviously with the faction. Speaking about faction wars, massive for high elf faction wars. She's definitely worth
well,
getting, but I was like, she's not. It's not like make or break. One of the big things in the past was that Arbiter would help you to do classic arena, but obviously I've not been playing, so fallen all the way down. But you can just sit in goal 5 now and just refresh every 15 minutes, and then there'll be one man defenses like that, and you get your medals just fine. So you don't. I feel like you don't need her for classic arena. Definitely still worth getting. I think it's super
I,
doable as well. I didn't think the only thing I
mhm.
thought was particularly hard is again going on to classic arena every time and refreshing. Other than that, it's
Yeah.
pretty easy to actually to get arbiter these days with all that new stuff and the power creep. Um, like the dungeons are so much easier than they would have been ages ago, and like the login champs and the promo codes, oof, like it's a lot easier. So yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
think
think in
it's
your
overly
case,
risky.
you're missing an arena speed lead that's really good. So I
Hmm,
think in your case, it might actually be more helpful than, like, for me, for example, I've
yeah,
got Sun Wukong already, so I don't need that, and I pulled a Morgaine, so I've got my speed champion and I've got the speed lead.
true,
So
true.
she gets me a slightly faster speed lead,
Yeah,
and
a great
actually
move.
Morgaine's
Yeah,
technically faster with her base speed too. So from that
yeah.
perspective, I'm not really gaining a lot either. So
No.
so yeah, for me, it's actually a little less incentivized, but again,
Hmm,
we'll see. I'm kind of playing it by ear, and it may depend on how much of a lead I have because I don't necessarily have to decide this. And to be fair, getting to the level 9 and through level 9, there's a bunch of extra rewards it unlocks too. So from that perspective, it could still be very viable to get to level 9 and maybe the level 10. But after level 10, there's then a win 200 more live classic arena fights, and it's an awful lot of grinding and not
yeah.
always the most helpful stuff for your account in some cases, as
Hmm.
far as whereas I might would getting some of the stuff to level 3 for the base stats, I think might be more impactful. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it does give you not only a lot of points for the competition, but it is just nice stats for low
mhm.
cost. Yeah, like it costs so much to upgrade this, whereas yeah, just picking up the stats really cheap. It's a fair
That's
point.
actually a good
Those are the
Faction Wars
challenge.
tip too. Is this is free stats for Faction Wars champions too? So getting
Yeah.
yourself to plus level 1, level 2, level 3
Mm-hmm.
early on.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I wherever you decide to take a break from pushing to get something maxed out,
Mm.
then going and getting the level 1s and the level 2s and the level 3s
Yeah.
almost everywhere early on, I think is great. Probably ignore resistance and go everywhere else early on
Yeah.
can be very, very helpful.
Like you can see I've done
Live
that
arena
in
definitely can be helpful as well. Do not spend money. Yeah, I mean, okay, you spend it in faction wars. I think that's a trap because that is
uh,
going to fall off in value quickly. But it's also
mm.
not that expensive for those level ones. So,
No, they're grade 1. It was pretty cheap, so I was like, yeah, might as well. I wouldn't push it very high, but I might even grab the grade 2 and be like, you know what? Bit of extra just to put it, if it helps me kill a boss a little bit easier that I wouldn't have killed. I was like, okay, maybe. I don't know. This might be a mistake, but I do think like grabbing a bit of speed in Fire Knight or Spider, some ignore defense. Again, early game is nice. Demon Lord, whatever. Like again, it's so interesting because I feel like spreading thin is so much better for the amount of stats and just your overall impact. I actually think they should change the missions. I think this is so outdated to get a thing to level 10. I think it's actually bad. You don't want to do that. It should be just get whatever the how do I see them? Just your Great Hall levels, wherever it is. I don't know where you can see that.
yeah.
Oh, here. Yeah, this level. Just get level, just upgrade them. So to encourage players to just level up everything a little bit is so much better than level one thing up super high because And it's quite easy for that to actually not be helpful. Anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, I could certainly see them capping it out at like 7 being the top instead
Yeah.
of 10, and so
Yeah.
you get
Absolutely.
they force you to do a little bit of both where you focus on a couple of stats, but you
Yeah.
get everything overall. So yeah, development level 50, for example, would be more worthwhile, I think, than what they've got here, for example, just throwing a number out there.
Yes.
So
100% agreed. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching, Bront. Thank you for joining me for this video. We hope it has been helpful and you guys have picked up some tips. And yeah, we'll see you all next time. Again, make sure to check out Bront in the description down below. And yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.